the start that the NBA 2K League has gotten off to in the combine. There have been a ton of technical issues. There have been a ton of problems just overall with I think it's all technical stuff. I mean, no, it's not all technical stuff. Some of it's just structural and foundational to begin with. But there's some technical issues for sure. People, there were guys who, probably girls too, who didn't even like they qualified for the combine. And when the combine started, they didn't have an option on their dashboard. So they had to go back and have that re-added in. Then there were people who, I mean, and some of the guys went to support and said, "Hey, what's up?" They got emails back from support saying, "I'm sorry, it's nothing that we can do. You're just not in." Like, wow, really? Like that's what happened? You know, it's just it's just really it's really unfortunate because I just started, for anybody that doesn't know, I write for Forbes and I'm also writing for heavy.com, but I just started writing for a new basketball publication called basketballwriters.com. And one of the things that I'm covering is the NBA 2K League. It sucked that the first article that I wrote for this new publication about the NBA 2K League was about how bad the combine had started. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that's not why I was brought in there to do like this to cover the league and, hey, this is what's going on. But if you want to talk about the league right now, that's the conversation. The conversation is the league is that the combine isn't functioning properly.
All right. Well, you have a question to go with that, or
it's not a question. It just is. It just is.
Here's the thing, Mazique. I played the combine last year. I had no interest in playing this year. The situation with the combine is you go in with a bunch of random players over and over and over again. This is a thoroughly idiotic way to evaluate talent. So the technical issues, listen, sometimes it can't be helped, right? It's not like there's a whole history of this kind of thing in gaming. So we have to respect the fact that on the technical side, there's usually something that's never being done before. That needs to be accomplished, and sometimes that just doesn't work out in the online environment. I get that. They need their ability to adapt and adjust is the real key. But quite honestly, the combine is such a thoroughly fraudulent idea, as last week we discussed, when you compare to how they do the Overwatch contenders to prepare people for the Overwatch League and prepare talent evaluators for the Overwatch League. I don't want to give that process any more credit than it deserves, because the primary focus should be an A-level talent player should not be forced to randomly queue with 4 F-level talent players, or C- level talent players, and then get a brand new set of them the next game and a brand new set of them the next game. Because then what happens is something as simple as archetype choice and floor spacing can drastically affect how a point guard or a big plays. Drastically. You know what I mean? Like, there is not a situation where your individual talent shines through despite the circumstances. No, you can ruin the criteria enough. You can ruin the foundation enough that it's dumb. It's a dumb way to evaluate talent. And the combine is dumb. And we should not be feeding into it. We shouldn't hope for it to work. We should hope the whole thing never worked at all, because they need a new way to do this that is more in line the way other established esports foster, grow, and cultivate team talent in a team-oriented game. This isn't Street Fighter. You can't just be dumped into a pool of random people and come out on top. That's silly.
Well, I agree to an extent. I do think the combine is flawed. I think, and I've said this before, and we'll probably have to save this for a separate segment. I think the entire process, the entire existence and creation and maturation and development of players across the entire NBA 2K League universe, and across the entire NBA 2K universe, is flawed.
Yes.
I've spoken to Brendan Donahue and some other folks from the league, and I've expressed to them what I think, how I think it should function. Now, here's the thing: a lot of people need to know. and I don't know if a lot of people know this. The NBA side of this joint venture, they don't know anything about video games
Right.
at all, right? They don't. All they know is that 2K is the biggest 2K is the biggest NBA video game brand, and it makes business sense to partner with them if you have the aspirations of going into an esport. That's what they know, right? So I think that was the basis for making this decision, right? And because they don't know anything about video games and esports overall, it's a logical decision to make. Okay, we want to do esports. Esports are based in video games. We want it to be around our brand and our product. Okay, NBA 2K selling 10 million copies a year. That seems like the right thing to do, right? So it makes sense. So I'm not saying it's a dumb decision, but what I'm saying is because they don't have enough experts under their current umbrella, they are leaving almost all of the structural aspects. They're leaving almost all of the technical setup to 2K.
Right.
And
And here's the big flaw with that.
mhm,
The folks over at 2K, we know a few of them ourselves, obviously. They have a very, very big project to do
mhm,
in this coming year called 2K20.
mhm,
They have roughly 9 months to create this game.
mhm.
And when the game comes out, people expect a AAA sports title that's bigger and better than last year's game in every single way. They do not have the time and resources to make another game for you and manage all things in this other game. So there needs to be a 2K League team,
Mhm.
both technically, artistically, and structurally, administratively, to
Mhm.
get this league to work. They need people who know about games. They need people who know about competitive games. They need people who know about esports. You know what I'm saying? These aren't all the same thing. They need people who
No.
know about watching stuff on Twitch.
And
These
they
aren't
need people who know that it's not all the same thing.
exactly. So here on At Me Bro, we like to help the people, and we're doing a service here. The combine is a terrible idea executed terribly. And the technical issues only highlight the in fact, I think honestly the technical issues put a light on a combine, but it covers up the biggest issue with the combine is that it is not part of a linear path from buying 2K, becoming great at 2K, and leveling up your skill and talent to make it into the 2K league. That's not what's happening right now. You guys have a fairly arbitrary process that will only result in more spotty NBA 2K League play, more talent and ego issues in the NBA 2K League.
Yeah, I mean, there are moments and there are aspects of the NBA 2K League that are truly exciting. Like last year, there was times, especially early in the season, that I really, really enjoyed the action. Right, I really did. Right, and then it got towards the middle of the season where I started to fall off with it, and then by the end of the season, all to me all of the problems, all of the cracks were like really just there to be seen, right? And so you're looking forward to season 2, and my expectations weren't extraordinarily high to improve upon those things because a lot of the things that books just said. uh 2K does need a dedicated NBA 2K League team. They don't work on anything else but 2K League, because if you want this venture to be as successful as it really can be, because it can be good, it can be. I think that you need an entirely separate build, more so even than what we have now, an entirely separate deal that is just specifically for this thing, right? I believe that. There's also some far more radical stuff that I believe that also needs to happen. Some of that stuff me and Books don't agree on. Some of it we do. But there needs to be some changes here for sure. And to me, the discouraging part of it is some of the changes are so drastic that need to take place. It's overwhelming to me. It makes me feel like, can that really even happen? Is it possible? Or if it can happen, how long does it take to get where we need to get for this game, for this league to be what I would call respectable.
Well, they have a serious problem on their hands, and this is they have two problems that they need to solve. Number one, they need a very compelling product in terms of competition, right?
Hmm.
It has to be awesome to watch. I just watched a video about why everybody should get into fighting games, and this is a guy talking about how he always hated fighting games coming up because they were hard to play and it's embarrassing to lose to somebody and felt like he was getting spammed all the time. And then he watched his first like tournament moment, and even though he knew nothing about what was happening, the dynamics of it were enough to bring him in. He could see where the skill was, even though he didn't understand the nuances of it. And that started to bring him over to get into fighting games. And he went more into that. And I've seen this in StarCraft for myself, notoriously terrible at strategy games coming up. It wasn't until later in life that I started to understand how they really worked. I'm watching the StarCraft tournament and I'm listening to the commentary and I'm like getting excited because it's bringing me in. It's letting me know. And I'm starting to see how are they doing that so fast. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Other esports, same thing. You talked about Overwatch, right? You could be a complete novice and noob at Overwatch, but the Overwatch League is to the point where they show you somebody popping off with Genji, you get that that's dope. You see somebody sniping with Widowmaker, you get that that's dope. The combine build is too tame. Everybody feels like an 81 overall.
Yes. Yeah. This is we
And
we
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 don't want to watch
agree.
the Jazz versus the Spurs.
We agree. We agree with that.
Right.
We're gonna get into and when when we carve out our segments, we kind of carve out how much time it's going to take to get through. We're gonna do a segment sometime in the next week or two where we'll get a chance to kind of talk about like I'll say what I think is the way this should function. And it's really my whole idea is to tear this all up and redo the whole joint type of a thing. And in terms of character development and your character, the maturation of your character, that my idea is pretty out there. So I'll just let you guys know that. I think Books probably has something that might even be more feasible to do, but I don't know. We'll see how much of that we share. But yeah, but we agree that everybody seems too similar. There's
Yes.
no difference. There's no different. There's no like visible difference. There's not
Right.
a big enough visible difference to identify like a true star.
Yeah. And
Who's
I will
really
say
great.
one thing that might change is that the takeover mode gives you some of that. And that's one thing that could lead to a little more individual.
You're correct. You're
Right.
correct.
Now, the other problem they have before we move on to our next segment is they have a personality problem.
Hmm.
Generally, esports are highly driven by personalities. Now,
Hmm.
there are some exceptions because there's a lot of, esports that are heavily internationally influenced, right, by the talent base. So the personality comes out of the commentary. And we discussed that last year too. Not that they're bad commentators on 2K League. I think they improved over time, but I still think that they are below the level of the top fighting game, Overwatch League, League of Legends commentators. Those guys and girls add a level of excitement to the commentary that I think, their personality can cover it. But 2K League is not full of Korean players that don't speak English. 2K League is full of American players that, if you look at 2K as an overall talent base, the 2K League personality talent is vastly, vastly inferior to the Park, My Career, even what do you call it? My Team talent. My Team, Park, My Career, and even Pro Am guys online are much more entertaining to watch on an individual basis,
Hmm.
much more entertaining as personalities than what they have going on at the 2K League. Now, I'm not saying the 2K League players don't have those personalities, but the structure of the league does not showcase those personalities. And they don't have any extracurricular entertainment to do so in the meantime. They need to fix that ASAP. Because
Yes.
without high level competition on the screen and personalities to bridge the gap between what's on screen and the viewer, you don't have a successful esport. And that's what we have right now.
Yeah, I agree. There definitely needs to be more things to facilitate and to give the players a platform to show personality. I think that the players' personalities and their uh, on-screen dynamics are all being nerfed.
Yes.
All of it's being nerfed, and they need to let that fly a little bit more. And I mean, who I really want to get into and say what I
Yeah.
think it needs to happen, but
We got more shows, man. It's going,
we
you
got
know.
we got to save it. But there's something that I specifically think needs to happen, and yeah, we'll get to that. But
How could I be weak? I'm rather unique.